I drove up to the cabin I bought alone, to rest. My half-sister's cars were in the driveway. Her husband, her kids, my stepmother, all moved in. She screamed, "Get out, you squatter! I'm calling the police!" I said, "Go ahead, I'll wait." Then I sat down on my own porch and let them dial. The gravel on Woodworth Road makes a sound I know the way other people know their own stairs in the dark. I came up it at 10 of 5 on a Thursday in August, 19 hours awake, with groceries on the seat. There were 3 vehicles in my driveway. A minivan parked square across the septic lid. A gray pickup with a ladder rack. A little red car with a Washington plate. And under the big larch, a travel trailer with its jacks down in my gravel and a hose running to my hose bib. Bikes on their sides at the steps. Beach towels drying on my porch rail. A clothesline strung to the propane tank. And hanging off my front doorknob on a rubber loop. A black plastic lockbox. I sat there a second with the engine off. Then I took out my phone, took a picture of it, and got out. My stepmother was sitting on the bench. I built that bench out of the beams from the old porch. She had her legs crossed, a coffee mug in her hand, a paperback face down on the arm. She looked up at me over her reading glasses. She did not get up. "Well," she said. The screen door banged and my half-sister came out fast, drying her hands on a dish towel, and got 2 steps down before she registered who was standing in the gravel. Quick pause before we continue. I'm Clara, the woman behind this channel. I write these stories because I love that little moment when strangers from different places end up feeling the same thing. If this one already pulled you in, stay with me. It goes deeper from here. The screen door banged and my half-sister came out fast, drying her hands on a dish towel, and got 2 steps down before she registered who was standing in the gravel. "Get out," she said. "Get out, you squatter! I'm calling the police." She said it loud enough that a dog started barking somewhere down the road. Behind her, the door had swung wide and stayed wide, and I could see straight down my own hallway. At the end of it, where the back bedroom is, there was a rectangle of light that should not have been there. The door was gone. It was leaned against the hallway wall, off its hinges, with the little brass hook latch still screwed into it about waist high. I looked at that for maybe 2 seconds. A boy about 9 came around the corner of the house with a stick and stopped when he saw everyone standing still. Travis came out onto the top step behind his wife. He had a phone in his hand, and he started to say something with the word booking in it. And then he saw the phone in my hand and what was on the screen of it, and he closed his mouth. Shauna was already scrolling. "I'm serious," she said. "I'm dialing." "Go ahead," I said. "I'll wait." And I sat down on the arm of my own bench next to my stepmother and let them dial. 11 weeks before my sister called the police on me, my stepmother called me at 10 in the morning, which is the middle of my night. I work nights. 12 years now, 6 on and 2 off at the 911 center in Missoula. I sleep from about 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, and everybody in my family knows that, and everybody in my family calls me at 10. The phone went off on the nightstand, and I had it against my ear before I was really awake. "Kitty, it's me. Did I wake you?" She knows she woke me. It's a thing she says. "It's fine. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I have good news, actually." Darla has a way of saying good news that makes your stomach drop a floor. Shauna and Travis are between places. I sat up. Travis got let go in May, and the landlord in Frenchtown wants that house back for his son, and they've got the kids and everything in boxes. And I just kept thinking, that beautiful place sitting empty all summer while your sister... "No," I said. There was a pause on her end, not a hurt one, a calculating one. "It's just for a few weeks." "No, Darla. You're not even up there. You work all the time. It would be somebody in the house, honey. It's not good for a house to sit." I said no, I'm going to say it once more so we're clear. No, that's my place. And I'm not renting it, and I'm not lending it, and I'm going up in August. Well, her voice went smooth and flat, which is what it does. You don't have to bite my head off. I'm going back to sleep. You do that. And she hung up, and I lay there in a dark bedroom with foil on the window at 10 in the morning, and I actually thought that was the end of it. That's the part I keep coming back to. I hung up thinking I had handled it. My father's name was Wade Kolstad, and he ran a plow and a road grader for Missoula County for 31 years. He died in January of 2023 with his boots by the door. He married Darla in 1996, when I was 9, and Shauna was 6. And the way it was explained to me at the time was that we were all going to be one family now. And I remember believing that all the way through dinner. We lived out on Rim Rock in a house with 3 bedrooms. Mine was the little one at the back with a window onto the alley. When I was 15, Darla took the door off it. She had a screwdriver, and she did it on a Saturday afternoon while I was at the pool. And when I came home, the door was in the garage, leaned against the water heater, and my room was a hallway with a bed in it. What she said when I stood there with my towel still around my neck was, "We need to be able to see what you're doing in there." I hadn't done anything. There wasn't a thing to see. That wasn't what it was about, and I knew it, even then. It was about who had a door in that house and who didn't. My dad came in from the truck around 6. He looked down the hall at the empty door frame, and he looked at Darla, and he said, "Where's the door?" She said, "In the garage." And he stood there a second, and then he went and washed his hands for dinner. That's it. That's the whole thing he did. When I was 19, they needed the room for Shauna's craft table, and I moved to an apartment on Burton Street with a roommate and a mattress on the floor. And after that, I was a guest in that house. Christmas, a plate, a chair, and go home. I bought the cabin in November of 2019. It was a 1968 shell on 2/10 of an acre off Woodworth Road with a caved-in porch and a dead deer under it. And nobody wanted it. And I paid $71,000 for it out of an account I had been building since I was 24. Nobody co-signed. Nobody helped me carry anything. I told them at Thanksgiving that year, at the table on Rim Rock, with the closing papers 11 days old. I was so proud of it I could hardly get the words out in order. I had pictures on my phone of a caved-in porch and a dead deer, and I was passing that phone around a table like a woman showing off a grandchild. My father took the phone and held it out at arm's length the way he did, and he went through every picture twice. He said, "That's a decent roof pitch." Then he said, "You did this by yourself?" And I said, "Yes." And he handed the phone back and said, "Huh." And I have thought about that for 6 years, because it was the good kind, and he did not have another one in him. Darla looked at 3 pictures and gave the phone to Shauna. "In Seeley," she said. "What on earth do you want with a place in Seeley? There's nothing up there but bugs and tourists." Shauna scrolled through the whole thing and said, "It's cute," in the voice you use for a coworker's tattoo. And then Darla said the thing that I did not understand at the time and understand completely now. She put her fork down and she looked at me and she said, "Well, that's a lot of house for one person." I said something about how it was 2 rooms and a loft. "That's not what I meant," she said, and got up to get the pie. I gave it 6 summers of Saturdays. Subfloor, roof, porch, wiring, the wood stove pad, all of it, mostly alone. Sometimes with Marley's prig from up the road, holding the other end of something and telling me I was doing it wrong. The last thing I did, in the summer of 2021, was hang the doors. 4 of them, solid core, and I painted them with the leftover porch paint, because I'm not made of money. And on the back bedroom, the little one, I put a brass hook and eye on the inside. A hook and eye. It wouldn't stop a child. It wasn't for stopping anybody. It was so that there was one room in the world I could close from the inside. I want to be fair about what I believed that morning in May. I believed I had said no, out loud, twice, to a woman who had heard me. I hung up the phone, rolled over, and slept until 4. It never once occurred to me that she had already told them yes. The room I work in has no windows, and it is always 68 degrees. There are 6 consoles in a horseshoe, and mine is the second from the left, and at 2 a.m. in June, the only light in there is the light off the screens. Highway 200, Highway 93, the Rattlesnake, the Bitterroot, somebody's headlights in a ditch outside Bonner, somebody's father who isn't answering the door, somebody's neighbor screaming at somebody's other neighbor at a fifth-wheel park in East Missoula. I've done this 12 years. I know how long it takes a deputy to get anywhere in this county at any hour of any night. From the substation in Seeley out to the Woodworth Road, it is 26 minutes. And that's if he leaves right away and it isn't fire season. Nobody in my family has ever asked me one question about what I do. Darla told a woman at church once that I work for the county, like Wade did. That's the whole extent of it. I mention all this because it matters later, and because on the first Saturday of June, I was on my 2 days off, sitting in my kitchen in Missoula at 11 in the morning with the blinds shut, scrolling with my thumb, when I came across a photograph of my own porch. Shauna had posted it, 6 pictures. My porch rail, my larch tree, the lake road, her kids on my steps with popsicles, and Travis in a camp chair with his boots up on my bench. The caption said, "First weekend at the family cabin, 41 likes." Darla had commented under it, "So happy." Wade is smiling. I sat there with my coffee going cold, and I looked at the date on the post. May 25th. Darla called me and asked on the 28th. They were already in the house. They had been in the house for a holiday weekend, with a caption and a hashtag. And 3 days later, she called me at 10 in the morning to see if I'd say yes. And when I said no twice, she said fine, and hung up. And nobody moved a single box. I drove out to Rimrock that afternoon. The house I grew up in has a carport now and a satellite dish, and a wooden goose by the front step with a little dress on it that Darla changes with the season. I let myself in the side door, like always. She was at the kitchen table with the church directory and a highlighter. I put my phone down on the table with the picture on the screen. She looked at it for a good while. She did not look surprised, and she did not look caught. She looked at it the way you look at a bill you're going to pay next month. "That was Memorial Day," she said. "I know when it was." "You said not this summer, honey." She capped the highlighter. "It's not this summer. It's just June." "I want to be honest." I laughed. One syllable, no humor in it. Darla, that's not a thing. June is this summer. They needed a place to be. Then they can be at a place they pay for. Oh, they'd love to. She took her glasses off and set them on the directory. "Travis is looking. There's nothing. You have no idea what rent is now." "I have a very good idea what rent is." "Then you know." She said it like she'd won something. "It's 4 weeks, maybe 6, and it's not like it's costing you." That's the sentence I took home with me. It's not like it's costing you. The propane bill came on the 11th of June, 302 gallons, delivered June 8th, $781.44, auto paid out of my checking account on the 10th. In August, in a cabin, I heat with a wood stove and use 4 weekends a year. I called the propane office, and the girl was very nice and read me the ticket. Fill requested by phone on the 5th. Caller gave the account number and the name on the delivery authorization. "Which name?" I said. "W. Kolstad." she said. I put my father in that field in 2019 because he was going to be up there fishing and I wanted him to be able to get gas if he needed it. He has been dead since January of 2023. Somebody had been sitting in my cabin with my account number, saying my dead father's name into a phone and getting 300 gallons of propane on my card. I drove down to the office on Highway 93 the next morning instead of sleeping. It's a metal building with a counter and a bell and a bowl of butterscotch candies. I had them take every name off the account but mine. I put a verbal password on it, and when the girl asked, "You want the note to say no delivery without the account holder present?" I said yes, and she typed it in. And I stood there at that counter at 9 in the morning off a night shift and felt something in my chest that I had never really felt toward those people before. It took 4 minutes. It was the first time in my life that saying no to my stepmother cost her anything at all. She found out inside of a week. The Tuesday after, at 20 of 2 in the morning, my supervisor came across the floor to my console with a pink message slip in her hand. Colleen on, 20 years on that floor, and she does not walk to your console in the middle of a shift unless something is wrong. "You want to take a 15? She said. "What's this?" "Administrative line took a complaint about you at 9 last night." The slip said, "Caller Darla Kolstad, States Dispatcher K. Kolstad, is harassing her family and using her position. Requests call back. No incident, no case number. Refer to supervisor." Colleen watched me read it. So did the two people at the consoles on either side of me, because in a room that quiet, you can hear paper. "It's my stepmother," I said. "I figured. There's no case, there's nothing to it, it doesn't go anywhere." She took the slip back. "But she called the county about you, Kit. On the recorded line, I'm telling you so you hear it from me." I said thank you, and I put my headset back on, and I took a call about a truck fire on the Blackfoot at 1:53. And I did it right. But I sat in my car in the lot at 7 that morning with my hands on the wheel for about 10 minutes. The next week I did something I had never done in 12 years, which is call my own building as a civilian, not my floor. The sheriff's office non-emergency line, from my kitchen, at 4 in the afternoon, on a landline number I had to look up like anybody else. I got a civil deputy named Roger who was very patient with me and who had no idea who he was talking to. And I did not tell him, because I wanted the answer everybody else gets. I laid it out. My property. My name on the deed and the taxes. Family members occupying it without permission since May. Utilities in my name being used. He asked how they got in. I said my stepmother had a key, because I gave her one in 2020 in case a pipe froze. There was a little pause, and then he said, "Okay, so that's the problem." He told me what I already knew and had been hoping to be wrong about. Once you let somebody in, once they've got mail there, and their kids are sleeping there, and they've been there weeks, a deputy can't put them in a truck and drive them off. It stops being a trespass and becomes what he called a landlord-tenant situation. And landlord-tenant means notice, and notice means paper, and paper means a district court in Missoula and a judge in 8 to 10 weeks minimum. And that's if they don't answer. 8 to 10 weeks, I said. On a good day. Summer, it's longer. They'd be out by then anyway. Most likely they would, he agreed kindly. That's usually how it goes with family. I thanked him and hung up and stood in my kitchen and thought about the fact that I answer that same question for strangers 8 or 10 times a year. And I always say it the same careful way. And I have never once heard how it sounds from this side. It sounds like nothing is going to happen. Marley Sprigg lives a quarter mile up the road from me, and she is 71 years old. And she has plowed my drive when I couldn't get up there, and I do her gutters. She noticed before I did. The first text was the 11th of June. There's a lot going on at your place. Then a picture of the trailer coming in on the 14th. Then, on the 19th, 4 bikes on my porch and a kiddie pool in the yard and, Kathleen, I don't want to be in anybody's business, but is this all with your say-so? I typed and deleted about 6 answers to that one. What I finally sent was, no, but I'm handling it. I wasn't handling anything. I was on nights. They were 70 road miles away. And every time I got 2 days off, I slept through most of the first one. Then, on the 30th of June, at 4 in the afternoon, Marla sent me a photo taken from her truck with the window down. A silver Subaru wagon with a Washington plate, backed up to my steps, hatch open. 2 people I have never seen in my life carrying grocery bags in through my front door. And underneath it, 4 words. Who are these people? Nobody in my family drives a Subaru. I found it at 3 o'clock in the morning on the 2nd of July, on my own phone, sitting at console 2 with the volume down. It took me about 90 seconds. I typed the name of the lake and the word cabin into a rental site and scrolled past the log places on the water with the docks. And then there it was, 4th one down. Cozy Seeley Lake cabin. Sleep 6. Quiet gravel road, wood stove, fire pit, dog's okay. The cover photo was my porch. Not a porch like mine. Mine. I took that picture. I took it on the 12th of September, 2021, at about 7 in the evening, standing in the driveway with my back against the truck, because I had just finished the rail and the light was coming in sideways, and I wanted one picture of it done. My level is lying on the top step in the corner of the frame. I could show you the level. It's in my shed. There were 11 photos in the listing, and 9 of them were mine. $312 a night, 2-night minimum. Cleaning fee, $90. Host, Travis R. member since May. 14 reviews. The first one was dated the 6th of June. I want to describe what that felt like, and I don't think I can do it right, so I'll just tell you what I did. I set the phone face down on the desk. I took a call at 3:06 about a vehicle in the Barrow Pit on Highway 200 at mile marker 11. No injuries. And I sent Bonner, and I logged it, and I cleared it. Then I picked the phone back up. I read all 14. They were nice. That's the part nobody understands. They were lovely reviews. Great location, so peaceful. The family who owns it is so welcoming. They stay in the camper out back, so you have the whole house. The wood stove worked great. There's a bench on the porch that gets beautiful evening light. Number 9 was posted on the 28th of June by somebody named Renee. Adorable little place, kids had a blast. Only thing, the little back bedroom has no door, which the kids actually loved because they could see out into the hall. Would stay again. I read that 4 times. I put a brass hook and eye on the inside of that door in July of 2021 with a chisel and a bit of scrap wood to keep from splitting the stile. It took me an hour and a half to hang that door plumb. It was the last thing I did to that house. Somebody had taken it off the hinges so the kids could see out into the hall. At 3:41, I took a call from a woman in Lolo who couldn't wake her husband up, and I stayed with her and talked her through the compressions until the ambulance came in. And she did fine, and he lived. I looked it up later. I need you to understand that I did my whole shift. Whatever else was happening, I did my whole shift. I called Darla at 4 in the afternoon when I got up. You're renting my house. I'm not renting anything. Flat. Immediate. I don't have anything to do with the internet. Travis is on a site, my photos, Darla. $312 a night. There was a pause that was about 2 seconds too long. That's their business, she said. So you know about it. I know they're trying to get on their feet. He got let go, Kit. He's got 2 kids. Off my house. Well, it's sitting there. Her voice changed then. It picked up a kind of gear it has, and it went where it always goes. Your dad would have wanted the whole family to enjoy that place. My dad never set foot in it, I said. He was sick by the time I got the roof on. You know that. You drove him to Missoula twice a week. Don't you talk about your father. You brought him up. You're never up there anyway, she said. That's the truth of it, and everybody knows it. You've got that place sitting empty 300 days a year while your sister's family lives out of boxes, and you want to make it about a door and some pictures. I hadn't said a word to her about the door. I drove up on Saturday the 12th. I don't fully know what I was going to do. I think I wanted to stand in the driveway and have somebody look at me. I stopped in town first because I needed gas and ice, and in the parking lot outside the store, a woman put her hand on my arm. Janet Scogan. She's been in Darla's Wednesday group for 20 years, and she used to bring us a coffee cake at Christmas. Kathleen! Oh, honey, I heard. She squeezed my arm. I think it's just wonderful what you're doing for your sister, letting them have that place while they get sorted out. Darla says you wouldn't take a dime. There were 3 people at the gas pumps, and a kid loading a cooler into a Jeep. I said, "That's Darla for you." Janet laughed and said, "Wasn't it?" and told me the huckleberries were early, and went in to buy her lottery ticket. I got back in the truck and I drove out Woodworth Road with a bag of ice melting on the floor, and when I came around the bend, I slowed down, and I did not stop. There were 2 cars I didn't recognize. There was a woman about my age, on my porch in a swimsuit, and a towel, sitting on my bench with her feet up on the rail, reading. A man was flipping something on a little charcoal grill by the fire pit I built, out of rock I pulled out of that ground with a pry bar. The trailer was under the larch with its awning out. Nobody looked up. Why would they? It was a car going by on a gravel road. I drove up another 1.5 miles, turned around in the pullout by the creek, and drove home. 55 miles. I put the ice in my own freezer in Missoula, and it was mostly water by then. On the 15th, a strange number called me at 9 p.m. while I was making a sandwich to take to work. Is this Kay Kolstad? A woman, apologetic, with a TV going somewhere behind her. I'm so sorry to bother you. We're renting a cabin up at Seeley, and there's no hot water, and the number for the owner is written inside the electrical box. So I thought, I hope this is the right person. When I put that panel in, I wrote my initial and my cell phone number on the inside of the door in silver marker, the way you're supposed to, so that whoever's up there when something goes wrong can reach somebody. I stood in my kitchen with a knife in my hand. It's the right person, I said. She said her name was Peg and they were down from Kalispell with her sister. She said the people who own it were so nice, they'd walk them through everything. But they'd gone to town and weren't answering. I asked her if she could smell gas. She said no. I told her to open the little metal cover at the bottom of the water heater in the closet by the back door. And I told her the pilot knob is red and it's stiff. And I told her to hold it down and count to 30 out loud after the flame catches, because that thermocouple is original and it will not hold if you let go early. She counted to 30 out loud on the phone with me, and it lit. Oh, you're a lifesaver, she said. Do you work for them? I said, something like that. She said the place was just beautiful. She said whoever fixed it up did a wonderful job on that porch. She said they'd be back in September if they could get the same weekend. I said I hoped she'd have a good stay, and I meant it because she'd done nothing to me. Then I hung up and stood there until the bread got hard, and then I threw the sandwich away and went to work without one. The family group chat went bad about 4 days later. I said one thing in it. I said, whoever's renting my cabin needs to take the listing down this week. My Aunt Bernice put a thumbs up on it. and then took it off. Somebody's kid sent a laughing face and then said, "Sorry, wrong chat." Shauna wrote a paragraph that started with, "I have kept my mouth shut for 2 months," and ended with, "You have never once in your life had to think about anybody but yourself." And then she left the chat, and then I was blocked on everything by the end of the night. Darla called me the next morning at 10, not to talk about it, to ask if I still had the church cookbook. The Highway 83 closed on the 18th for the fire up past Placid Lake. Level 2 evacuations on the west side. Smoke down in the valley so thick you could look right at the sun. I worked 6 nights straight of it. Marlies went to her daughters in Kalispell. For 2 weeks, I heard nothing from anybody, and I'll admit there was a piece of me that thought, maybe that ended it. Maybe they cleared out. Maybe a fire does what a phone call can't. On the 28th of July, at 4:20 in the morning, a new review posted on my cabin. Number 12, 5 stars. Family of 5, 3 nights. It had a photo attached because the site lets you attach photos now. It was the back bedroom. 2 sleeping bags on the floor, a duffel open against the wall, and the doorway standing empty behind them. And on the wall by the frame, at about waist height, you could see the pencil marks. 2 little ticks, and a squared corner, and my handwriting sideways in the drywall dust, where I'd measured for the hinge plate 5 years ago, and never painted over. Because I always meant to, never did. My father was born on the 2nd of August. He'd have been 69 this year. Every year since he died, Darla has done something on that date. The first year, it was a lunch at the Elks in Missoula. The second year, it was coffee and a cake at the house on Rimrock. And both years, she called me a week ahead to tell me what time. This year, the phone didn't ring. And I noticed, and I told myself she was being careful because of the fight. And I decided I'd drive out on the 3rd with flowers, and we'd be adults about it. Marlies called me at 20 to 4 on Sunday afternoon and woke me up. "Kathleen, honey, I'm sorry, I know your hours." She was outside. I could hear the road. "There's got to be 30 cars up here. They're parked down both sides, clear past my mailbox. Is this the thing for your dad?" I sat up in the dark and with the foil on the window. "What?" "They've got the tables out and a big picture of Wade on an easel by your steps. I thought—" She stopped. "Oh, Kit. It's fine. I'd have brought a salad. I thought you were up here. I thought that's why nobody called me. I thought I just wasn't invited. Marlies, it's fine. Take a picture for me." She sent 9. Then I found the rest myself, because Janet Scogan posts everything, and Janet Scogan has never set a privacy setting in her life. There were 2 folding tables end to end in my yard with a plastic cloth on them, and about 40 feet of aluminum pans. There was a poster board with my father on it at 4 different ages, and a mason jar of wildflowers, and somebody had leaned his old hard hat against the easel. The horseshoe pit was going. There was a boy up on my woodpile. Somebody had a guitar out on my porch steps, and everybody was singing something. Because in one of the shots, you can see 30 mouths open at once. Darla was in a chair at the top of my steps, with a paper plate on her knee, and both hands up in the air telling a story. I counted the wide shot 3 times. 31 people. I know a lot of those faces. My dad's brother from Deer Lodge. 2 men from the county shop who came to the funeral in their work coats. The Scogans. 2 of my cousins. My father's oldest friend, who taught me to back a trailer. Nobody called me. Not one of 31 people picked up a phone and said, "Hey, are you coming to your dad's birthday?" They didn't have to wonder where it was either. It was at my house. The 6th photo is the one that took the legs out from under me. It's a picture of 2 kids doing a 3-legged race, and it's out of focus, and it's aimed toward the back of the property. And behind them, over by the shed, my back bedroom door was lying across 2 sawhorses with 4 cans of deck stain, and a coffee can of brushes standing on it. They were using it for a table. You can see the paint I mixed, which is the porch color. You can see the brass hook still screwed into the stile, hanging straight down off the edge because nobody had even bothered to take it off. I called Darla. She picked up on the fourth ring with noise behind her. Dishes and voices still there, still in my yard at 4:30. Kit, 31 people at my house. It was for your father. You didn't call me. Well, a chair scraped. She walked somewhere quieter, and when she came back, her voice had that patient thing in it, the one she uses on people at church who've had a loss. Honey, nobody wanted a scene. A scene. You'd have made it about the house. She let that sit there. You'd have walked in and made your dad's day about a door and a website and who paid for what, and everybody would have gone home early and felt terrible. I've got 30 people here who loved that man. It's my house. And this was his day, she said. There's nothing here for you to be part of, Kit. You didn't even come the last 2 months he was alive. I drove to Missoula 4 times a week for the last 2 months. He was alive. My father was in a bed on the 4th floor at Community, and I came off shift at 7 and went up there and sat with him until 9. And then I went home and slept, and then I did it again. He was mostly not talking by December. The last full sentence he ever said to me was about a fan belt. I have the parking receipts from the hospital garage in a coffee can because I never throw anything out. I have 31 of them. I didn't say that. I didn't say anything. I hung up while she was still talking, which is the only time in my life I have ever done that to her. And I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark for a while. And then I got up and took a shower and went to work. I had 4 hours before I had to be at work, so I got in the truck and drove to Bonner. I stopped at the grocery on the way and bought the flowers I'd been planning to bring out on the 3rd. $9 in the plastic sleeve, mostly carnations, and one of those dyed daisies that isn't a real color. The checker asked if I wanted them in a bag, and I said no. The cemetery is up on the bench above the river, off the frontage, with a gravel loop and a hand pump and a coffee can of pruning shears somebody leaves out for everybody. My father is in the 4th row from the fence. Flat granite, his name and the 2 years and a plow on it, which was my idea, and which Darla did not like because she thought a plow was undignified. There was already a mason jar of wildflowers on his marker, lupine and yarrow and Indian paintbrush, wilted at the edges, sitting in about an inch of water in a jar with the ring lid still screwed on the outside of it. Next to it, there was a paper plate with a piece of white cake on it, going hard, with a plastic fork. And about 6 feet away, still standing open in the grass, somebody's blue folding camp chair. So they had come here, on their way out to my place, or on their way back from it. 31 people had stopped here and put a jar down and cut a piece of cake for a dead man and stood around in this grass. And then they had driven 28 miles up the 83 to eat the rest of it in my yard. I sat down on the ground beside him. Not on the chair. On the ground. I stayed about 40 minutes. I didn't talk to him because I've never been able to do that, and I don't think he'd have gone in for it either. I pulled the grass back off the bottom edge of the granite where it grows in over the winter, and I got the dirt out of the letters with my thumbnail. I put my $9 carnations down next to the mason jar, and they looked exactly like what they were, which is flowers from a grocery store. Next to flowers somebody's kids picked in a ditch. Before I left, I folded up the blue camp chair and put it in the bed of my truck because it was going to sit out there and blow into the fence, and somebody was going to have to deal with it. It's still in my shed. Nobody has ever asked me about it. The night of the 2nd into the 3rd was a quiet night, right up until it wasn't. At 10 after 2, I took a call from a woman out in Clinton, 78 years old, standing in her own driveway in a housecoat. Her grandson had changed the locks on her house. That was it. That was the whole call. He'd been staying with her since spring, and that afternoon, he'd had a man come out and change the deadbolts. And when she came back from her sister's, her key didn't work, and he wouldn't come to the door. This is why I love making these stories. People think silence means weakness until the proof is already in the room. Stay with me. We're right at that point. That was it. That was the whole call. He'd been staying with her since spring, and that afternoon, he'd had a man come out and change the deadbolts. And when she came back from her sister's, her key didn't work, and he wouldn't come to the door. I don't want anybody in trouble, she kept saying. I don't want to be a bother. He's my daughter's boy. I get some version of that call more often than you'd think. I told her it wasn't an emergency, and I told her that didn't mean it was nothing. I told her she was the owner, and he was not, and that no locksmith and no piece of hardware changes that, and that the deputy who came out would not be able to move him tonight, but would be able to write it down. And that, written down, is where all of this starts. I asked her if she had someplace warm to be for 2 hours. She said her sister's. I said go there, and I sent Clinton, and I stayed on with her until the headlights came up the drive. She said, before she hung up, "You've been so calm, honey. Do you do this every night?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." Then I sat there at console 2 with my headset around my neck and looked at the dark part of the screen where the map isn't. And I thought about a 78-year-old woman standing in a housecoat in her own driveway, apologizing for being a bother. At 4:12 in the morning, I opened the rental site on my phone. The calendar for cozy Seeley Lake cabin, Sleep 6, was open. Thursday the 13th through Sunday the 16th of August. $312 a night, $90 cleaning fee, and it asked me for a name. I typed Kathleen Kolstad, and I put in my card, and I pressed reserve. I drove home at 7 that morning with the sun already hot on the side of my face, and I got into bed, and I slept 8 hours with the overhead light on and my clothes still on. The confirmation was on my phone when I woke up. Your trip is booked. Cozy Seeley Lake cabin, Sleep 6. Check in. Thursday, August 13th, after 4 p.m. Check out Sunday, August 16th, by 11 a.m. 3 nights, $312 night, cleaning $90, total $1,026 guest, Kathleen Kolstad. Host, Travis R. Guest, Kathleen Kolstad. Nobody in that family has ever called me Kathleen in my life. My father called me Kit from the time I could walk, and everybody after him just did what he did. Darla says Kitty when she wants something. Shauna says Kit. It is on my checks and my license, and nowhere else. Travis looked at that name in his host app and did not recognize the woman who owns his house. I read that confirmation maybe 30 times over the next week and a half, and every time I got to the word Kathleen, I felt the same thing, and it was not sadness. I want to be honest about that. It was not sadness. I put in for the 13th, 14th, and 15th the next night. I had 11 days banked. I had been sitting on that time since March, the way you do when you keep telling yourself you'll take a real trip someday, and then you never book anything. Colleen came by my console at the end of shift with the slip. Approved. You've got Thursday through Saturday. She looked at it again. Kit, you've had this time since spring. Take Sunday, too. Thursday through Saturday's fine. Doing anything? Going up to the lake. She smiled at that like it was good news. About time, she said. Take a book. The welcome message came in on the 5th, automated, 3 days after I booked. Hi, Kathleen. Thanks for booking. We're so glad to have you. Directions. Turn off 83 at the Woodworth Road, go 2.4 miles, gravel drive on the left with the big larch. Lockbox is on the front door. Code is 1968. That's the year the place was built, easy to remember. The wood stove is ready to go. There's plenty of dry lodgepole under the tarp. We're just out back in the camper if you need anything at all. Quiet hours after 10. Travis and Shauna. 2.4 miles. The Big Larch. Plenty of dry lodgepole under the tarp. I split and stacked that lodgepole in September of 2022 out of a tree that came down across my drive in a wind event. And I put that tarp on it with 6 bricks because the wind up there comes down the draw and takes anything that isn't held. He was giving me directions to my house. He was telling me, in a cheerful little paragraph, the year my house was built, which I know because it's written in pencil on the underside of a joist in the crawl space. And I know that because I have been under there on my back with a light in my teeth. I did not answer the message. I asked Marlis exactly one question on the 8th, by text. Are they up there on Thursdays? She wrote back in about 4 minutes. Honey, they are up here every day. Where would they go? The trailer hasn't moved since June. Then, a minute later, what are you planning? I typed, nothing, I'm coming up on the 13th. She waited a long time and then sent, okay, I'll be home. That's all either of us said about it. Marlis Prigg is 71 and has been on that road since 1979 and does not need anything explained twice. Then I worked, and I waited, and that was the strangest part of the whole summer. 6 nights on, 2 off. A rollover on 93 South. A grease fire in a kitchen in Bonner that a man put out himself before the engine got there. A 14-year-old who called because her mother wouldn't wake up and did everything right and her mother was fine. I did my job. I ate my sandwich at 2 a.m. I went home and slept with foil on the window. Darla called me on the 7th at 10 a.m. Not about the cabin, not about the memorial, about the headstone bench at the cemetery in Bonner that she wants to put in next spring for my father, $2,200, and would I go halves? She talked for 11 minutes. The mason has a wait list. The stone comes from a place in Idaho. She wants the lettering deep so the snow doesn't fill it. I said, send me the invoice when you have it. You'll do it? Send me the invoice. Oh, that's good. That's real good, Kitty. He'd like that. I said, okay, and I said goodbye. And I put the phone back on the nightstand and lay back down. And I was asleep in about 4 minutes, which I don't think I have ever managed after one of her phone calls before. On the 10th, Marlis called me instead of texting, which she does about twice a year. Your stepmother came to my door, she said. She'd come up the road at 11 a.m. with banana bread, sat in Marlis's kitchen for 40 minutes and talked about the fire and the road and her hip, and then, on her way out, with her hand on the screen door, asked whether Marlis had been sending Kathleen pictures. What did you say? I said, pictures of what? Marlis said. I'm 71 years old, honey. I can be as dumb as I need to be. Then she said, Darla stood there a second and said, well, she's got herself worked up over nothing, and got in her car. She's worried, Marlis said. About what? That's what I'd like to know. People aren't worried when they think they're in the right. She let that sit. Then, you're still coming Thursday. I'm still coming Thursday. All right, she said. And that was the end of it. I have coffee on Sunday mornings with a woman named Sandra, who I met in a first aid research class 9 years ago, at a place on Higgins that does an egg sandwich on a pretzel roll. The 9th of August was a Sunday. She asked how my family was. That's a normal question. People ask it. And I got about 4 words in. I got as far as my stepmother. And then I looked at the sugar packets, and I said, you know what, everybody's fine, and asked her about her son's transmission. And she talked about that for 20 minutes and never noticed a thing. I don't know why I didn't tell her. I have thought about it since. I think it was because saying it out loud to somebody kind would have made me hear how it sounded, and I did not want to hear how it sounded. I wanted to drive up there on Thursday with a bag of groceries and a reservation and find out what happens. So nobody knew. Not Colleen, not Sandra, not even Marless, who knew only the date. There was nothing to tell. I had a reservation. I had paid for it. The only plan I had, if you want to call it a plan, was to drive up on Thursday afternoon and put my key in my own door. On Wednesday, I put a duffel and a sleeping bag in the truck. I went out to the shed for the cooler, and while I was in there, I picked up the end nippers off the pegboard, the little red-handled ones I use for pulling staples, and I put them in the door pocket of the truck. I didn't think about why. I want to be accurate, so I did not stand there and reason it out. I put them in the door pocket and I closed the shed. Thursday morning, I came off shift at 10 of 7, and I did not go straight to my car because the eastbound crew came in early, and we stood around in the hall the way you do. And I got home a little after 8 and lay down. At 9:41, my phone went off on the nightstand. Your reservation has been canceled by the host. Cozy Seeley Lake cabin. Sleeps 6. August 13th, 16. Canceled by host at 9:41 a.m. Host message. Owner needs the property this weekend. Your refund of $1,026 is processing and will appear in 5 to 7 business days. Owner needs the property this weekend. I read it twice. I laid the phone face down on the blanket, and I put my arm over my eyes, and I lay there in that dark room for about 4 hours without sleeping at all. At 2 in the afternoon, I got up, I took a shower, and I put on jeans, and I drove to the store on Reserve Street and bought coffee, eggs, bread, a chicken, potatoes, ice, and a paper sack of huckleberries from a card table by the door because a girl was selling them for her 4-H. Then I got on 200 and went east, and at Bonner, I picked up the 83 and went north. It's 55 miles. It takes an hour and 10 if you're not behind a boat, and I have driven it in every kind of weather there is. Smoke haze up over Salmon Lake that afternoon, the water flat, the cottonwoods along the clear water already going a little yellow at the tips. I turned off at the Woodworth Road at 20 to 5 and went 2.4 miles. And I came around the bend at 10 of, and the first thing I saw, before the trailer and before the towels and before the lockbox on my door, was my sister's minivan parked square across the lid of my septic tank. So I sat down on the arm of my own bench, and I let them dial. It's a strange thing to hear from the outside. I have heard the other end of that connection about 40,000 times, and I have never once stood in a driveway and watched somebody make the call. Shauna held the phone out in front of her face on speaker, the way people do when they want you to hear that they're really doing it. It rang once. 911, what's the address of your emergency? And my sister opened her mouth, and nothing came out, because she did not know the address. She stood on my steps with her thumb in the air, and turned around, and said, Trav, what's the address here? And Travis pulled his phone out and scrolled and read it off to her. Off the listing, off the page with my porch on it, and she repeated it into the phone one number at a time. I have taken calls from people who couldn't give me an address, kids, people in shock. A man in a whiteout on the divide. It is the most human thing in the world, and I have never held it against a single one of them. I held it against her. And what's going on there? There's a woman at my house who won't leave. The call taker's voice did what it is supposed to do. Flat, unhurried, one question at a time. I knew every one of them before it came. Is she inside or outside the residence? Outside. Do you know her? She's my sister. Does she have any weapons? No. Has anyone been assaulted? No, but ma'am, is she making any threats? She's sitting there. There was the smallest pause on the line then. She's sitting there, the call taker repeated. On the porch. She won't leave. That's a civil standby. That is not a hot call. That is not a priority one. That does not run lights and sirens. And it goes out to whoever is in service in that district whenever he gets to it. I knew what code it would be given before the words were finished. I also knew that from the substation in Seeley to the Woodworth Road is 26 minutes, and there was one car working that whole end of the county on a Thursday in August. The call taker asked if she wanted to stay on the line. Shauna said no, and hung up and looked at me with her chest going up and down. They're coming, she said. I know, I said. Darla drank her coffee. She never got off that bench. Not once in the whole 26 minutes. She sat with her legs crossed and her paperback face down on the arm, and she watched the road. And when Shauna went past her the second time, she said, "Sit down. You're making it worse." Which is the only thing she said out loud to anybody until the deputy got there. Travis went inside. He came back out. He went inside again. The third time he came out, he had a red gas can in his hand and set it behind the trailer for no reason I could see, and then stood there with his hands on top of his head. The little boy came back around the corner of the house with his stick, and Shauna said, "Go to the camper. Both of you. Go!" in a voice that made him drop it. I took pictures. The lockbox on my knob, the clothesline on the propane tank, the trailer with its jacks down in my gravel, and the hose running to my bib. The hallway through the open door, with the light in it that shouldn't be there, and the door leaning on the wall. The two sawhorses out back with the stain cans still standing on them. I did it slowly and I didn't hide it. And every time the shutter noise went off, Shauna said something else about what kind of person I was. Squatter is a word she came back to 4 separate times. At about 10 after 5, Marlis Prigges Ford came down the road and stopped at the fence line, and she shut it off and rolled her window down and just sat in it with her arm out. Nobody asked her to leave. Nobody was going to. At 5:16, a white pickup with a light bar came up the drive and parked behind my truck, and Deputy Neil Sandin got out and put his hat on. I have never met that man in my life. I've talked to him probably 400 times. 9 years of Seeley 11 on my channel. 9 years of copy, en route, show me out, 10-8. He has heard my voice at 4 in the morning in whiteouts and at accidents, and on the night a plane went down by Seeley Lake. He knows my voice the way I know that gravel. He came around the front of his truck, and everybody started at once, and he did what they train you to do, which is stop walking and let it burn out. And while it was burning out, he was looking at faces, and he got to mine, and he stopped. "Kit?" The porch went quiet. "Hi, Neil," I said. "You're..." He looked at the house. He looked at the trailer. He looked back at me. "This is your place, up on the Woodworth. You've talked about it?" "It's my place," Shauna said. "She doesn't live here. She just showed up. She's been harassing us all summer. She called the propane company and got our gas shut off. Ma'am." He put a hand up about 6 inches. "One at a time. Who lives in the residence?" "We do." "Since when?" "Since..." And there it was, the first crack in her voice. "May." "And who owns it?" Nobody said anything. Darla looked at the road. I stood up off the bench and I held out my phone, and Sandin took it, and I let him read it himself because there is nothing I could have said that would have been better than the screen. "Your reservation has been canceled by the host. Cozy Seeley Lake cabin. sleep 6, 3:12 night, August 13th, 16. Guest, Kathleen Kolstad. Host, Travis R. Canceled by host at 9:41 a.m. Host message: owner needs the property this weekend. He read it. He scrolled up. He read the welcome message with the lockbox code and the directions to my own house. He looked at the listing photo of my porch. And then he looked up at my porch. And then he looked at the lockbox hanging on my doorknob, about 4 feet from his elbow. He said, "Huh," very quietly. Then he got on his shoulder mic and read my address out and asked for the owner of record, and the radio came back 30 seconds later in a voice I know. Dana was working days that week, and said the name on the tax record. Kolstad, Kathleen M. Everybody on that porch heard it. It came out of the speaker on his shoulder into a yard with no other sound in it. Travis sat down on the step. Sandon handed me my phone back and turned around and said it out loud once, so that nobody up there would be able to say afterward that they hadn't understood. This is her house. She's the owner of record, and she's standing on her own porch, and there is nobody I can remove from this property tonight, except by her say-so. That's the whole of it. He looked at Travis. Now, separate from that. Somebody has been taking money to rent this house out. That's not something I'm going to sort out in a driveway, but it is something somebody's going to have a conversation about. Shauna said, "She's my sister." "Yes, ma'am," Sandon said. "That's why this is a hard one." And at 5:20, while he had his book out and was writing, a blue crossover came up my drive with a kayak on the roof and pulled in behind the deputy. A man and a woman got out, mid-40s, 2 coolers, and a dog on a leash. They came a few steps up the gravel and stopped when they got a proper look at everybody. And the woman lifted her hand and said, in the loud, friendly voice of a person who has been in a car for 5 hours, "Hi, we're the Nyquists. We had the 4 o'clock check-in." There is no sound quite like nobody answering. Travis put his face in his hands. Marlies, at the fence, turned her head and looked out at the trees. And I know exactly what she was doing, because I have done it in church. Shauna looked at the deputy and at the strangers, and at her mother. And her mother did not look back at her. That was the moment, if you want one. Not the radio. Not the phone. Darla sat on that bench and let her own daughter stand there by herself, in front of a cop and 2 tourists, and did not get up, and did not say one word in her defense. She's been doing that to somebody for 30 years. It was just never Shauna before. I went around the side of the house. I took the 4 cans of deck stain off the door and set them in the grass. I lifted my bedroom door off the 2 sawhorses. A solid core door weighs about 70 pounds, and I have carried it before. And I got it up on my hip and carried it around the front, past the deputy, past the coolers, past the woman with the dog, past my sister, past my stepmother on the bench, and up my own steps and through my own front door. Their things were everywhere. Shoes in the entry, a laundry basket on my chair, somebody's phone charging on my counter, a coloring book. It smelled like other people's food. I stood the door in the frame. I lined it up and I dropped the top pin in and then the bottom one, and I pushed it, and it swung the way it has always swung, because I hung it plumb. Then I closed it, and I put my finger under that little brass hook, and I let it fall into the eye, from the inside. I stood in that room in the quiet with all their stuff on my floor, and I listened to a deputy's radio going out in my driveway, and that is the only time that whole day that I cried, and it was about 90 seconds. And then I was done. The trailer was gone by Saturday. The rest of it took 9 days. Sandon gave me a report number before he left and told me to write down anything else that happened. The listing came down sometime Friday night. I checked at 3 in the morning from work and it was still there. And I checked at 6 and it was gone. The site froze what was in the account and made him give back 2 bookings in September. And I know that only because Travis sent me one message about it and I did not answer. Nobody was arrested and nobody went to court. And I never asked for a dime of the propane back. Darla has never apologized. She told the Wednesday group that I put my own sister and 2 little kids out on the road in August. And Janet Scogan sent me a card about it, which I think she meant kindly. The bench at the cemetery got put in this spring. I paid half. I said I would. Shauna and Travis are in Frenchtown again, in a duplex. My cousin says Shauna doesn't talk about that day at all, and Darla talks about it constantly. And those 2 things are going to sit in that family for a long time. I found a drawing on my kitchen counter when I was hauling out their things. Green crayon, a house with a triangle roof, and 4 stick people, and a dog. And up in the corner, a big yellow scribble for the sun. I don't know which one of them drew it. I put it in a drawer because I couldn't throw it away. And I couldn't leave it out either. I repainted the back bedroom the last week of August. Same porch color, because I had most of a gallon left. Then I went back on nights. I took the last week of October, when the tourists are gone and the road is empty and the tamarack up the Woodworth goes gold all at once and drops in about 4 days. 7 days. By myself. First real time off I've taken since I bought the place. The lockbox came off the doorknob that first evening with the little red-handled nippers out of my truck door. It took 2 squeezes. It's in the bottom of the burn barrel out back with the rest of what wouldn't compost, and it will still be there when I'm dead. Because plastic doesn't burn. It just sags. The bench is where it's always been, at the left end of the porch where the light comes in sideways. There's 1 cup on the arm of it. And at the end of my hallway, there's a door closed, with a brass hook lying in its eye on the other side. I'm Clara, and this is my channel. I love making these stories and sharing them with people across the world. If this one found you at the right time, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.